Hold on. Sorry, Pete. I totally said that wrong. Okay, here we go again. Take two. Sorry. Travels through the rubber universe, we have Pete! Go on, bring her on, bring her on!
Good evening! Yeah, I know what you're thinking, that Duncan from Martha Glenn's let himself go. Good evening, I'm Pete. I'm a postdoc at the University of Glasgow, and it's actually true what they say. It is all just sex, drugs and sausage rolls. But I'm a postdoc in astrophysics, so it's just and sausage rolls. So, we've had the physicist already, so she's stolen all the good jokes, and I work for the Institute for Gravitational Research. And so traditionally when we do outreach, we bring in a piece of apparatus with us. It's called the Rubber Universe. But I think it sounds like some sort of S&M site. So, didn't want to confuse folk tonight. So, before we came down today, we were submitting a big multi-million-pound grant. So, if that doesn't go well, you're all cordially invited to my new fetish haberdashery, the Rubber Universe, for your gimp masks, ball gags, and apparatus to explain the curvature of space-time. So, there are several reasons to do a PhD. First of all, to get the title doctor, so that if you see someone in the street injured, you can do fuck all, really. But actually, one thing, I do know how to conduct a blood test to test if you're a type 1 or type 2 supernova. So that's one of the reasons. One other reason is to avoid getting a proper job, or to avoid shelf stacking if you get the wrong side of Ian Duncan Smith. But then there's a main reason, is to get to travel to some cool places. So I work for the Institute for Gravitational Research. It's this collaboration with institutes in America and Europe and Japan. So sometimes you get to go to some cool places. I've been to Hawaii, I've been to Japan, been to Cardiff. We were in New York, this is a true story, we were in New York the year it was announced that this big conference with thousands of physicists. The next year we were going to be in Cardiff, and you could see all the PhD students from the UK going, and then you could see all the budget holders going, oh yeah, that's just an EasyJet flight from Glasgow. So we get to go to great contests. You apply online to give a talk or give a poster, and occasionally some folk arrange their travel early, only to get an email to say, really sorry, the conference is oversubscribed. Sydney 2007. But already booked my travel, Sheila, got to go. Sorry. But yeah, so we've got to get there. So, traditionally to get to Australia, you fly. So we get to check in. Don't do as one of my colleagues genuinely did. Excuse me, madam. Has anyone given you anything to take with you? Oh, yes. Who? Work did. What do you do? Oh, I'm a nuclear physicist. Cue that hidden button under the check-in desk of her getting carted off and me not seeing her 2.5 hours later when she sheepishly appears on the plane. But then that kind of got me thinking, actually, in her defence, do folk think that check-in desks think that physicists just carry like bits of uranium, like the introduction credits to The Simpsons, wave them about? Sorry, this is bugging me. Can you just hold that? So eventually, once you get let on the plane, after after much prodding, in her case, you have to then navigate the local transport system, especially in Japan, and accidentally see some of the sights on the way to the conference. And you get to check in, so there's all these big check-in desks these days, and you get a big fancy lanyard and you do the customary check. Does it say Mr.? Does it say Doctor? What's happened once? Professor. And then also nowadays you get these big fancy conference bags. You get a rucksack like this gentleman's one at the front, or as happens genuinely in Berlin, you get a bag that looks like this. This is genuinely true from Marcel Grossman. From Rubber Universe. Shit, it's taken! Oh well, you're all cordially invited to my subsidiary company, LaTeX World, to help you with all your math type problems. So check out the curly brackets on her subsection. So we're registered now, and it's time to go find your hotel. So I have a very, very trusted colleague that I share a hotel room with us, various reasons. He doesn't snore, we get on quite well, we leave the pub at the same time. And also he understands the concept of leaving the sock on the door handle. But the chances of that happening at the physics conference are pretty slim to none, well, edging towards none. So eventually, so share rooms. But I had some colleagues from Germany. They shared a room, discovered I had a double bed. And so this was a PhD student, this big Russian professor, and they had to share the room for a week. And then I found out on a Wednesday at breakfast with another friends who were a couple, and they couldn't move the bedside cabinet between the two beds out of the way, and were stuck with two singles. The nice person to me probably should have introduced them to each other. Fuck. So we found a room, we found a conference venue. It's time to go to the conference. So it used to be the case that you used to always sit at the front so you could see all the talks, but it's now the case that you sit nearest the most accessible PowerPoint, so you can plug your laptops in and whatnot. So I've come up with this new game that I'm going to try at next conference. This is to try and plug in the most obscure thing. So plug in my laptop, plug in my phone, maybe a George Foreman grill. At a distance, looks like a laptop. Also, heat up sausage rolls. So, and then there's all the faff, there's the folk that don't bring Mac adapters and use the previous version of Word, or even worse, use Comic Sans Serif. And I remember a conference a few years ago where, before it was easier to embed video into PowerPoint, where the guy was alt-tabbing, the planning speaker was alt-tabbing to the video, but hadn't closed his browser. Queued 250 people looking up going, boobs. And this is actually the first conference, so with this edition of Power Plugs, this is the first time I'm actually seeing people looking at me. So quite often you see 100 Dell logos, 100 Apple logos, maybe one Alienware logo at the back. Dude, you're not here to work. So, and then it's your time to give your talk, and as happened a couple of times, I've been standing up to come give my talk, and my supervisor's tapped me on the shoulder going, this is the updated talk. So you load up and start giving your talk, and you get onto slide 5, you're like, never seen this before, have I done that, really? So anyway, you've travelled the world, you've given your 8-minute talk, and then it's time to relax and enjoy the conference dinner. So as is often the case when you have physicists and have wine, and we're away from our computers, this leads to, instead we have to make do with back of the napkin calculations. So I have one from a conference, it's true, I have one from a conference in Italy last year, where we were in a balcony overlooking a swimming pool. So we saw a sign saying the swimming pool's 3.5 metres deep, so health and safety, tick tock. It's about 5 metres away in the X direction. But we're 3 stories up, so each story is about 10 feet, so 30 feet. Oh, sorry, we're scientists, we want to work in SI units, so 9.14 metres. If there's any chemists here, you could convert it into moles. If there's any biologists, it's about 6,000 moles. So, assuming that gravity acts downwards at 9.81 metres per second, and for a spherical physicist in a vacuum, gives you a fall time of about 1.37 seconds, or so to cover that distance, I have to be travelling at 3.6 metres per second, or 13.6 kilometres an hour, and fairly rotund, and I can run in the treadmill about 11 kilometres, so it's like 13, that's doable. And then I was sitting there thinking, all the folk I'm sitting with, it's like, I'm sitting here with a bunch of theorists. They just sit, code, and look at MATLAB all day. I'm an experimentalist. So yes, that's right. I wanted to know the error bars on that calculation. And if you want to know what they were, come see me at my post at the interval. Thank you very much.